All right, so if you're always short on cash and you're wondering how can I get more cash flow, well, today I'm going to kind of dive into that. So hopefully you'll follow along on the video. Hey, thanks for joining me today on my channel. This is Discovering My Money, and well, today I'm taking you to my series on budgeting, where I'm going to be showing you maybe a few ways to look at trying to free up cash flow and different ways you can get more cash flow and apply that again towards debt or things that you really need to be putting money towards, as opposed to these constant payments that you're just seeing as never ending. All right, so here we are. We're talking about budget. We've gone through income and expenses and trying to get a positive cash flow. So we're always working towards the positive side. And if we're negative, we definitely need to make changes. But if we want to speed up either our debt payment or our retirement plan or our savings for travel or to go, on a bigger trip, we definitely have to increase our positive after we do our income and expenses, right? So we do that spreadsheets, figure it all out. How much money do we have left over and where's that money going? Now, in your home might be a little bit more difficult because your mortgage and rent are pretty stable. But if your rent is really high, you can look at moving somewhere else and taking that rent cost and moving it down. Now, if certain neighborhoods are, question to you, like you don't feel safe in some neighborhoods, that might be an issue for you, or it might just be simply your place you're staying right now is much closer to where you work, so the commute would cost you, as much as what the extra rent's costing you. So that may not be an option for renting. But with mortgaging, say you've paid off part of your mortgage and you've got 15 years left, maybe on your next renewal, you can look at trying to get it back to a 20-year and giving yourself a lower payment. You do have to pay on it longer. You're going to pay more interest. So this is not necessarily an option that is recommended unless you need the cash flow, if the cash flow is going to help you with your debt. Now on mortgages, you can also do things like a second mortgage and get a lower rate on a second mortgage and take up all your other debt and do that. Now, if your mortgage isn't below 80% of what the value of your house is, you're probably not going to get that extra loan, because typically a mortgage or any lending towards your house, they want you to have, especially when you're going to a second mortgage or a line of credit on the house, they want you to have at least 20% paid off, and then the extra you can look at doing. So a line of credit's a really good way to do it, because you can then pay off the line of credit as fast as you want, and if you overpay on it, you can always get some of it back, whereas a regular loan, you pay it off, you don't have access to that money again. So the home is a really big one, because the mortgage does have that flexibility on the dates of renewal. And if you are going to renew at a longer pace, you're going to hopefully lower the payment that you have. Now, if interest rates have gone up, like they just recently did, this may actually just put you back at the place where you were, as opposed to, now having a higher payment, which can be just as good as trying to lower it, right? Because if it goes up because of higher interest rates, it could be in a worse situation. So doing it over a longer period of time. Now, you might have to switch banks or look around to do that, because some banks may or may not do that. So this is kind of a big question. And is the value of your property still where it was when you bought it? So if you bought at a high and now it's at a low, you may have a struggle trying to find a different place to refinance your mortgage. But definitely look into that and find out what you can do with that cash flow, especially if you have a high amount of debt, and especially credit card debt. How can you pay that credit card debt down? And sometimes a line of credit on your mortgage is the easiest way to do it. They still may want to do an evaluation on the property, but nonetheless, how can you use your mortgage to get more cash flow, help you pay down your debt faster, or either consume that debt and then just have a lower interest rate attached to your mortgage? And same thing with rent. Going someplace at a cheaper rent is a good thing, or maybe talking to the landlord once you've been there for a while and say, I'll sign a lease for 1 or 2 years if you know you're going to be there, but what price will you give me? Will you lower my price? And they may be interested in doing that, because then they have the security of that check coming in on a regular basis. Now, with a car, lots of people are doing 7-8 year loans on their car. And so what happens here is you get stuck with this payment you thought was really good, but it's really not as good as you thought it was. And now you're stuck with this car payment for an extremely long amount of time. And you've paid down less than what the value is, right? So you haven't paid down enough of this loan to get to what it's actually worth. So if you sold the car, you'd still owe money, and then you just wouldn't have a car. Most dealerships will let you go in and trade it in, and then they'll just add what's on there, or they'll figure it out with whoever their lending partner is. They'll add that part on. So if you're going to do that, go to a car that's going to cost you less per month. You might have to add that extra money on, but you're going back to probably another 7 to 8 year loan again, and you might be able to refinance a new car that's a cheaper car for less money, and then take this extra part and still have a lower payment. Now that is a benefit to you. I wouldn't recommend that unless you are super cash strapped. You do need to figure out how to get that option of having more cash flow. If that's the case, then getting a new car that's cheaper and then taking whatever's left over on your other car after you've traded it in and adding that to your new car loan, that is an option that you can do to get more cash flow. But you're actually, you might be down to 5 years left on this loan, but now you're going back to the 7-8 year. So now you're potentially paying longer, and you probably are paying at least as much, assuming that the loan hasn't really changed. So a car loan can have some maneuverability depending on what your situation is. If you're willing to downgrade your car, if you're near the end of what you owe on your car and it's getting to the end, definitely go for a cheaper car. Cars are definitely cash flow problems, right? So usually a cheaper car is going to be a smaller car, right? So you want to get a smaller car. It's going to do everything's going to be cheaper on it, right? The tires are going to be cheaper. It's going to use less gas. It's going to have a smaller insurance bill. Smaller is going to make it cheaper for you. You're going to pay less for it, and your monthly payments are going to go down. So smaller car, better. And if you can do that at the end of what your current loan is, that is fantastic. If you can't, still look at it as an option. See how it benefits you. If you get enough of a reduction, like say $100 every 2 weeks or $125, you get $250 towards your debt. That could be massive for you if you got lots of credit card debt and no other way to get down on that. That's really going to be a huge issue for you. All right, so let's go to entertainment now. And we're talking about streaming here. Lots of people will have 3 to 4 streaming services, and you don't need 3 to 4 because you're not going to be able to watch all of them. Now, I don't really believe there's enough on these streaming services that it should occupy like your entire month. So maybe you have 2, but maybe you do 1 a month, right? So you do 1 a month and then sign up for the next one the next month. They want you to sign up for 12 months, but I don't think any of their services have enough on there to do it. Well, maybe some of them do, and maybe I just don't watch everything that's on there, but I think you can get by with 1, right? Just watch 1 channel and then go to the next channel. And they all have different shows coming out, and we all want to see those shows when they come out. But here's the thing, they're kind of egging you into it. So you thought you're getting out of this whole cable bill, and maybe you're still on cable, and that might be one big thing to look at. How do I get out of my cable? And so streaming services are huge. Now with streaming services, I'm also going to mention apps. How many apps do you have on your phone that you never use? You've signed up for them, you're paid for them, and they're just billing you every month. If you're not using those apps, go in and get rid of them. These are small things, like this might only be $20 a month or whatever it is for each service, and so it's less than $100. But if you add up all of these, and I bet you go find $100 if you're someone who signs up for these things thinking, I'm really going to use this, but then you don't use it, get rid of it, especially apps that you don't even use and they're just billing you monthly just because you signed up. No, it's not of use to you. Streaming, really, you don't need 3 to 4, 1 to 2. I'd say go with 1. If you're cash strapped, 1, then you still get some entertainment, but you have the option to sign up for the next one in the next month. There you go. Make sure you unsign yourself, right? So you're subscribing on a monthly basis. Go and subscribe, and then go in right away and unsubscribe so that next month you don't get billed, and then you have 2. Okay, so let's go on to the next entertainment thing, which is Friday nights. So if you're still at the point where you're going out on Friday nights, which I typically don't, but Friday nights, what does this bill to you? If you're going out and buying drinks at the bar, okay, or a pub or whatever, wherever it is where you meet up with your friends, I bet the cost of those drinks is quite a bit substantially higher than what it would be as if you went out and caught a 6-pack and had everybody over and, you know, played a board game or, you know, something, whatever it is that would entertain you, or just got out and hung out, you know, maybe a backyard fire pit or something like that. You could probably be just as entertained, play whatever music you want to play, and you're not paying the bar tab that you'd be paying. You're going to have much less. In fact, you probably do, you know, a lot more snacks and drinks for the same amount of money or less. And I'm pretty sure that if you figured that out, you'd probably be a little shocked at how much you're spending, because that's gonna really knock into your budget. So things like that, you maybe still want to go out once in a while, but maybe you're going to go out once a month, right? And then 3 times a week, you're going to be in your backyard or in, you know, at somebody else's house. And so your Friday nights maybe start having a little different direction if you want to have your budget go in a better direction. Okay, so now this is still the same thing like outings, but this might be concerts and other things. So you might see a concert you want to go to and you just put it on your credit card. And so you got to maybe figure out, how do I get a handle on this? I'm going to allow myself so much for outings, but I'm not going to go over it. So if 3 concerts come up and I'm only going to allow myself X amount of dollars, I can only afford 2. I have to figure that out, because where do we want to be with our budget? What's more important, our dollar value at the end or going to these 3 concerts? And I'm just using concerts as an example. You may have to pick which one you like best. Don't feel bad for the entertainer. They're going to sell out their concerts. Somebody else is going to fill your seat. It's not a big deal. And they're not all your favorite bands, right? So if we're talking about bands. If you're talking about, you know, just different outings, like going for, you know, dinner on the weekend with, you know, friends and family or whatever, how many outings are you allowing yourself per month, and what kind of price tag are you allowing that? Maybe you need to cut outings out altogether for a short period of time, right? Maybe 2 to 3 months you need to say, I'm not doing any of this because I can't afford it, or I want to have these dollars go towards my debt. Once I paid off some debt, I can use some of that money to go back to doing some outings. So outings might be a major thing. And I'm talking about concerts, like things that just come up and you just put them on your credit card, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, now how do I pay for this? Those are major problems. The regular Friday night thing is probably a bigger problem, because you're doing it all the time and you're just saying, I've done this forever and I'm going to keep doing it and blah, blah, blah. So that could be a major lifestyle change. Whereas outings are just kind of stuff that you're going out and paying for. And you're like, I really want to do this. I got to go do this. Or everybody I know is going, right? So these things, these are extras on top of just what your regular stuff is. The regular stuff is probably easier to schedule because you can rearrange that and say, okay, on Friday we're going to do this instead, assuming your friends are on board with you. But here, the outings part, those are things that are a little harder to plan because they kind of come up out of the blue. Like, again, I'm going back to concerts, but other things that just you end up doing because, okay, this presented itself. And you might have to figure out how you're going to get a little bit of a handle on that so you're not just signing up and going. Okay, so eating out is the next one. And this is a huge one, because lunches, if you are making your lunch, you could probably do it for $5 to $6. And I'm sure there's people that could do it cheaper, but we're going to say $5 to $6, whereas you're probably paying a minimum of $10 if you're, you know, say going to like McDonald's or another fast food place. And in fact, I'd say depending on what you're getting, you're probably finding it hard to do $10, depending on which country you're in or which region of the country you're in. So certain price tags are definitely adding up for eating out. Where if you can still do a lunch, homemade lunch for $5 to $6, this is a big one. I think if you are doing this 5 days a week and you're saving yourself $4 to $5 on a weekly basis, you got to think about it. You're saving yourself $20 to $25 a week. So you can save yourself up to $100 a month again on this. So if you're saving $100 on all of these areas, that's huge. And then coffee. If you are driving to work and pick up your coffee on the way, and let's just say you're paying anywhere between $3 to $5 for your coffee, and you could pay, let's say $1 to $2. We'll say $1 to $2. I mean, I don't really think you'd pay $2. I think my coffee pots cost less than $1, and the cream that I put into it is probably still costing me, I'd say, less than $1. So I'm probably sitting around $1 for my homemade coffees, which is still expensive because I get the the French vanilla. So the coffees, right? So these two, if we just look at lunches and coffees and what you're doing on your daily commutes to work, this is probably these two here can save you quite a bit of money. Definitely saving $100, right? On a monthly basis. But here again, if you're saving, $1 to $2 a day, you're saving another. And if you just do it during week, well, we know we do it on the weekends too, right? You're saving yourself $1 to $2 a day. You're saving yourself another $20 a month. So you're definitely at $100 to $120 a month in the eating out area. And I haven't even talked about if you're going out for dinners with your friends or what have you. So this is a big one right here. And if we talk about, I know when my kids were busy in activities, we would constantly be grabbing a pizza or food somewhere else. And the nights that I would make sure that I had food ready was sometimes a little bit of a rush, a little bit of a hassle, but not, nearly as expensive. So if you can make yourself something easy like a hamburger help or like a lasagna that's a pre-made lasagna, they're not super cheap because lasagna's it's pre-made, but nonetheless it's still cheaper than going out. And we always had leftovers, which meant it was for more than one meal. And in the end, it was still cheaper than going out to eat somewhere else by a large amount, probably a third of the cost. And like I said, there were still leftovers. I'd have lunch and probably another meal after that myself, and my kids wouldn't necessarily do leftovers, right? So, but when you're eating out, you are spending more money, and the more you can try and control this one, I think the better off you're going to be. And then of course that just goes back to what are your grocery expenses and how can you maintain that. Now, a lot of times with groceries, they'd be looked at a variable expense. But I think if you were able to go out and say, this is what I need for groceries and go out and buy everything, you'd be able to put a dollar price on it and try and make it fixed. Say, I'm going to try and stay under this amount on a weekly basis. I'm going to only spend this amount, whatever that amount is, whether it's, $100, $200 a month, depending on how many people you're feeding. It can be more, it can be less, but if you're paying here at the grocery store, as opposed to going over here and eating out, you're going to be saving a lot of money, right? So this is a huge difference where you can save money. And I just focus on the lunch and the morning coffees, and you're saving $100. So if you're saving $100 here, and we're potentially, saving, well, depending on the streaming, because we could have like, probably, if we have 3 streaming services and we cut out 2 of them, you're saving another $40 there. Your Friday nights, if you can go down to 1 night a week out, or 1 night a month, sorry, and then spending at home, and on those 3 weeks you're maybe spending as much as you did when you were going out on Friday night, you're probably really reducing your bills. It's probably half, so you're probably saving another $100 there. And different outings, outings can cost you, concert tickets are huge. If you go to sporting events, they're huge, and then you end up having snacks and other things. You're probably saving another probably $100 a month on that. So we're easily at $300. If you can reduce your mortgage payment or car payment in any way, and you can save yourself $50 to $100 on either one of those, I would definitely look into those, because if you can apply that towards your debt, right, and you want to increase your cash flow and lower your debt, so therefore lower your debt, you're putting yourself in a much better situation. And the more debt you get rid of, the more credit cards you cross off, the more loans you cross off, the higher your cash flow goes. And if you don't start spending that right, you just keep applying your extra cash flow to whatever debt's left, pretty soon you have no debt, and then it's just all cash flow. And this cash flow can now go towards things like, well, we go cash flow towards debt first, then we can go towards savings, like an emergency fund. Okay, so save on an emergency fund, then we can put it towards retirement. And if you're young, you're like, I'm young, I don't want to worry about that. But the thing is, when you're young, if you start even with a small amount, like you're only putting $25 a month away, you got a base, that's going to add up towards something. It's not going to add up to a huge amount towards your retirement, but you'd be surprised how much $25 a month would actually get you if you started doing something and then just increase it over time. But you can, instead of flushing the $25 a month into, credit card debt, you put it towards retirement, and then you still have money to spend on other things. So you can do retirement. Then of course you can do travel. And then we just say other, but look, now we're talking about the concerts and the sporting events and all the other things that you want to go to. You can save up money for them ahead of time. So you've got the cash to do that. And I don't know why I made this travel with a T, but it's travel with an L. You have different things you can apply that extra cash flow towards. You get rid of all your debt, then you have more savings, set up an emergency fund in case something happens, like you lose your job. Retirement, even if you're not putting all that money into your retirement, you can still get it started. Even just a small amount is going to do wonders for you. And then you can start looking at, where do I want to travel? What are my vacations? How do I want to spend that money on my vacations? You now have options. And instead of putting on your credit card, you can now pay it with cash. There are, and this is hugely important, is you need to find accounts. There are accounts out there. Everyone says there's not. There are accounts that pay you a higher percentage, right? The higher percentage for just having an account. So I have a cash account, and when I'm doing automatic deposits, it's giving me 4.5%. Now this is annual, so it's not monthly, it's not huge, but 4.5%, where others are paying like 1%. So find a cash account that you can put your money into, like your emergency account and so on and so forth, where it's at least doing what inflation is doing. And if you're going to be spending it right away, like travel is something you're going to do within a year or two. So inflation's not as big a deal. If you're leaving it there for 10 years, yes, leaving cash dormant, just sitting there for 10 years, you're going to be hit by inflation, right? So inflation is going to play a part on the value of that cash that's sitting there. But if I have it sitting in my cash account at 4.5% a year, I'm probably keeping up with inflation. I know recently we've had higher inflation, but this is definitely where you want to go with that. Okay. All right. So thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Follow along in the series. It really helps out my channel if you do this, so I do appreciate it. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.